Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, I've told you that all winter, fishing is my dreams. I dream about when the new season begins. And when it became April, I was all about trout fishing because that was the first season of the year. Now when May came, it became northern pike to me because it still isn't bass season, but northern pike is another one of our great species. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. Through the years, I've really had an inclination, based on a lot of rumor as well, that the northern pike fishing was deteriorating in the St. Lawrence River. Ever since the 80s, it's been going downhill because what I've heard from biologists, or maybe it's better to say rumors, and we get so much of things from things we hear from other people, was that the northern pike, the area that they spawned in, was not available as much to them, and they couldn't get back to reproduce to those areas because of the growth of different types of like cattails or other substances that were closing off those channels where the pike would go to. But what I found by fishing this year for northern pike is that, boy, that population seems really well to me. And what I noticed also going back in time, back when I used to fish with my great buddy Louis Barkley, who I really consider one of the legends of the North Country. But Louis and I used to fish pike all the time. And we go out in St. Lawrence near Waddington where he lived, and he knew those waters. And we would catch pike that at the time I considered huge, 8-pound pike. That's a good-sized pike, and we would catch a number of them that size. And through the years since, I really didn't catch many that were that big. But this year, I've caught some really monster pike in my mind. When I use that word monster, you might wonder exactly what I'm referring to. I don't want to sound like somebody that exaggerates. I'm talking about pike up to 40 inches. That's a big fish. And I wanted to pass on what I use. I think most people have their favorite lures. It seems like every year for northern pike, I have a new favorite. In the past, I used this lure called a Lunker Hunt. That was the company that made it, a Lunker Hunt Gambit. And I went on the radio and told you all about that. And boy, did I ever catch northern pike on that lure. It's something that's soft plastic and I'm sure would still work as well, but I've graduated to something else now. And what I caught all these northerns on, I'll share with you because I think a lot of you probably don't use bucktail jigs, but I've been using it's called Northland makes it. Northland 1/8 ounce bucktail that's about 4 inches long. And it's rare to get a 4-inch long bucktail in that light of weight. And the reason I like the light weight is because when I cast it out into shallow water where these fish seem to be this time of the year, I don't want it sinking down to the bottom and getting caught in weeds as easily as I can do something lighter. So this lure is 1/8 of an ounce, and it's a special color. It's pink and yellow and white. And the pink is on the back where it would be as it goes through the water. It's on the top of the jig. And then the white, the yellow in the middle and the white on the bottom, which would be at the belly of what this represents. And honestly, this thing seems to be a dragon slayer to me. And another thing that we've talked about so many times on these shows is the role that color plays. And I got to tell you, I believe the color is everything. I believe this pink, yellow, and white is the magic color that makes these fish hit. And it doesn't matter what waters I go to. I've fished several places this year now. And in each place, this is the magic lure that catches all the fish. And I'll tell you one other thing about it that I think is critical. This lure has a little bit of tinsel that is tied into it. And I think when the sun hits that tinsel, it gives it a glow and it shimmers. And I really believe that's part of what makes this jig so special. You can use whatever other lures that work really well for northern pike are spinner baits and like daredevil spoons in red and white. Red and white's always been a great color. And of course, soft plastic swim baits like that Gambit that I told you was my favorite a few years ago. But anyway, the northern pike fishing is great, and that's the biggest thing I wanted to report. And I know that there's so many people that look down on northerns. They figure that they're a nuisance because they'll be fishing a tournament and they'll hook onto one and they just as soon cut their line as mess with it. The other thing is they're not that easy to get off the hook. I think there's certain things that you got to always take with you if you're going to fish northern pike. And I will tell you, long-handled pliers. And the other thing that's critical is if you've got, they make what they call a jaw spreader. And it's like a inverse pliers type of thing where you stick it in their mouth and it pries their jaw open. Because the last thing you want is those teeth cutting your hand, and they will cut you, and they can cut you severely. So you really have to be careful. And catch and release is an important part of this. I don't think we'd have the population of northerns that we have if people had kept them all to eat them. And speaking of that, in another report, I'm going to talk about eating fish. I know we've talked about that a lot, but I have some new information I want to pass on. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.